Sinister secrets of the haunted corn maze. 7 terrifying discoveries exposed under your feet. The sun hung low in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced menacingly among the twisted stalks. As the festival buzzed with laughter, a chilling chill crept in, carrying whispers of dread. "Beware the haunted corn maze," they said. "It's claimed the lost, and the forgotten." Kids scurried past, their bright faces unaware of the lurking darkness, yet Jessica felt it, a tightening in her chest, like the grip of unseen hands pulling her deeper into a nightmare. Jessica, a single mother in her late 30s, tried to shake off the creeping dread, focusing instead on Ethan and Lily. "Look at the pumpkins," she called lightly, forcing a smile. But even the orange hues seemed hostile. She took a breath, trying to center herself. The fall festival had always been her sanctuary, a place of rich traditions in their tight-knit Midwestern town, a much-needed escape from days as a school cafeteria manager, where she fought tooth and nail to ensure every child received a proper meal. Yet, as darkness pooled around them, the charm of the festival morphed into something sinister. Giggles turned to nervous whispers, and the earlier warmth disappeared among swirling autumn leaves, replaced by an air of foreboding. The corn maze, a long-standing attraction, loomed ahead, its entrance gaping like the maw of some hidden beast. Jessica felt a strange weight in her gut, but she pushed her fears aside. They were here to create memories, after all. As they ventured deeper into the maze, golden ears of corn surrounded them, looming like sentinels cloaked in shadows. Ethan dashed ahead, eager to explore, his adventurous spirit shining like a beacon. But Lily clung to Jessica, her small hand trembling. "Mom, it's too quiet," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Just seconds later, a rustle echoed behind them, branches snapping as if hidden creatures stirred from slumber. Jessica's heart raced, an instinctual dread washing over her. "Ethan, wait!" she shouted, suddenly feeling the ground shift beneath her. Before she could grab her son, Lily slipped away, drawn in by spectral whispers that swirled through the leaves. "Lily!" Panic gripped Jessica, her voice cracking as she called out. The maze seemed to shift, twisting paths blurred her direction, the corn stalks looming closer, looming darker. Her head spun as the laughter of children turned to echoes of torment, in a world that no longer felt safe. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Jessica stumbled along the twisted paths, her mind racing with the chilling rumors she'd heard earlier about the maze's connection to disappearances plastered on local news. Clubbing shadows and dark eyes flickered just out of sight, taunting her with the unending unknown. "It's just a story," she told herself. But the static air only amplified her fears. Somewhere deep in the maze, a sound sliced through the night, a faint scream that echoed like a death knell. Could it be Lily? Jessica's breath hitched. She had to silence her rising dread, didn't she? But that scream, could it lead her to her daughter, or would it lead her into an abyss from which she'd never return? What horrors lay in wait, just beyond her grasp? Barely able to catch her breath, Jessica fought through the thickening darkness. Every step felt heavier, weighed down by dread and desperation. "Lily!" she cried again, but her voice seemed to dissolve into the air, swallowed by the rustling corn that felt almost alive. The frantic rhythm of her heart echoed in her ears, drowning out the world around her, each beat a reminder of the chilling silence that answered her calls. She pressed on, panic surging with every step. Shadows writhed amongst the stalks, twisting into grotesque shapes. Was it her imagination? She needed to focus. Her goal was clear: find Lily. But with each turn, the maze morphed, corners doubling back into themselves, spinning her around like a carousel of fear. "Hang on, sweetheart. I'm coming," she whispered, more to reassure herself than anything else. Then another scream pierced the stillness, a high, terrified wail that crept up her spine like icy fingers. It could only be Lily. The sound sent Jessica barreling down the winding path, pushing past fear and doubt. She had to reach her, had to get to her little girl before the maze swallowed her whole. The scent of damp earth and decomposing leaves filled her nostrils, each inhalation reminding her of what lay hidden underfoot. Suddenly, cracks echoed behind her. Heart racing, she turned, searching the encroaching darkness. The rustling grew louder like footsteps stalking her, chilling her blood as she picked up speed. "Lily!" Jessica screamed, the name tearing from her throat. Nothing but silence answered, a mocking silence that filled the air with apprehension. She stumbled forward, the ground rising and falling before her in chaotic waves. A flicker of movement at the edge of her vision made her gasp, yet when she turned, nothing was there. "Please, Ethan." "Lily!" she begged, her voice hoarse. "What is happening?" The air became heavy, almost palpable like a thick fog of dread, pressing down upon her. Finally, through a narrow gap between the corn stalks, Jessica caught sight of a shimmering light farther down, like a beacon in the dark. It danced invitingly, fluttering like a candle caught in a draught, flickering assurances of safety. Stumbling toward it, she felt a pull, a sinister grace urging her to run into its glow. But the scream from before still echoed, bouncing off the maze's walls. Whatever awaited her in the heart of the corn did not feel right. A sudden chill raced up her spine as she paused. The whispered voices returned, flowing around her like a river of malice. Into the light they coaxed, and her blood ran cold. "Don't!" Clenching her fists, Jessica braced herself. "This is not real," she whispered fiercely. "I will find Lily." She pushed forward again, determination clawing at her fear. Without warning, she stumbled upon a strange clearing where the moon's rays finally pierced the veil of darkness. To her horror, carpets of dried leaves quilted the ground, interspersed with twisted roots that snaked like fingers across them. And there, at the center, kneeling in the dirt, was a young girl, her daughter, face pale and eyes wide, trembling uncontrollably. "Lily!" Jessica dashed forward, but a looming shadow flickered behind her daughter, swirling like a sinister fog. Jessica felt the breath stall in her lungs as Lily's eyes widened in abject terror. "No, Mom!" Lily shrieked, pointing behind her. Something heavy and dark shifted in the shadows, a mass that should not exist in this world. Sensing its presence, Jessica's heart stuttered in an icy grip. The maze pulsed around them, as if alive with a breathless anticipation, waiting for the moment to claim another soul. In that instant, Jessica understood, the maze was not merely a labyrinth of corn, but a trap, an entity alive with hunger. And they were the prey. As the darkness surged closer, the screams intensified, demanding release in a cacophony of voices. At that moment, Jessica knew they had to run. But escape was a mere illusion in this cursed entanglement, an impossible dream in a nightmarish reality. Could she protect her daughter from the insatiable hunger of the corn maze? Would they find their way out, or would they disappear like so many before them? With one final glance at Lily, Jessica took in a shaky breath, preparing for the unimaginable. The blackened silhouette darted toward them, and dread filled the air, thick as smoke. "Hold on tight!" she shouted, grasping Lily's hand, summoning every ounce of courage. Before she could step forward, a deafening crack split the night, and everything around them buckled like a house of cards, threatening to trap them forever within the maze's grotesque embrace. What awaited them beyond this darkness? As the ground rumbled ominously, they stood on the brink of a terrifying revelation. The ground trembled violently beneath Jessica's feet, a powerful reminder that they were no longer in control. She closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, hoping against hope that when she opened them, the nightmare would dissolve back into her imagination. But the sharp grip of Lily's hand in hers and the ominous crackling of corn stalks snapped her back into reality. "Mom! We have to go!" Lily screamed, her eyes darting to the encroaching shadow that stretched, flickered, and lunged. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Jessica pulled her daughter close and ran, desperate to escape the hunger that lurked behind them. They spiraled deeper into the maze, the walls of corn closing in on them, whispering sinister secrets. What is that thing? Jessica panted, glancing back to catch a glimpse, but the shadow never seemed to reveal itself fully. It was always there, lurking, a reminder of the dangers that awaited them if they faltered. Just keep running, Lily replied, her tiny voice trembling, bolstered by fear. Together, they dashed through narrow paths, the air thick with the scent of earth and decay, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Each step felt heavier, as though the ground itself was trying to anchor them down, to pull them into the murky depths of the corn. The whispers intensified, approaching a fever pitch, swirling around them like a tempest. Feed, 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 they chanted, sending chills cascading down Jessica's spine. Stay with me, she called, as Lily faltered. The little girl's breath came in quick gasps. The vision of the looming darkness draped over them like a shroud, taunting their every move with promise of despair. Suddenly, the ground shifted again, buckling beneath them, and Jessica stumbled, her knees hitting the dirt. Mom! No! Lily screamed, yanking her mother's arm as if her grip alone could pull them both away from the abyss that beckoned below. Get up! Jessica urged, fighting against the debilitating weight of terror that threatened to pin her down. She saw Lily's terrified face, and it ignited a primal instinct within her. With a surge of determination, she leaped to her feet, dragging Lily along. The rustle of the corn seemed to grow into an uproar, a cacophony of angry breaths that swirled like a cyclone around them. Overwhelmed, Jessica cried out, "What do you want?" The answer, however, was lost in the growing din. She pushed onward, fueled by the need to protect her daughter at all costs. Then everything fell silent. The sudden hush was deafening, so stark it felt unnatural. Time stopped, and the oppressive darkness smothered them in its grip. They slowed to a halt, fumbling to catch their breath, hearts skyrocketing in their chests. What just happened? Lily whispered, her voice trembling. Jessica spun around. The corn maze, which had felt alive with threat just moments ago, now stood eerily still. But something was off. The air trembled, quivering with the sensation of being watched. Mom, Lily whispered again, and Jessica turned to face her daughter, only to find an expression of sheer dread plastered on her face. Something was behind her. Jessica pivoted sharply, dread pooling in her stomach. A figure manifested from the shadows, tall and distorted, a grotesque semblance of a human being, its limbs curving at unnatural angles. A face, half submerged in darkness, peered forward with eyes like bottomless pits, glowing with an insatiable hunger. The whispers returned, this time louder, more insistent. Join us, run! Jessica shouted, yanking on Lily's arm. They bolted through the maze, every inch of her body screaming for escape, for freedom from the shadow's grasp. But the ground beneath them became treacherous, cracking and splitting as the figures seemed to glide effortlessly through the corn. They want us to stay! Lily screamed, terror palpable in her voice. Jessica felt the weight of the creature's malevolent intent behind them, the whispers reaching out like tendrils of darkness. With fear clawing at her insides, Jessica knew they had to find a way out, and fast. Nothing was as it seemed in this corn maze. Did it exist to protect them, or were they forever trapped in a cycle of torment? Ahead, she spotted a narrow path lit by that same insidious glow. It promised refuge or further doom. Uncertainty lingered in the air as she tightened her grip on Lily's hand. What lay down that flickering path? Would they find their salvation or descend further into the abyss? Jessica's heart raced as she pulled Lily along, each second stretching into a nightmare. The glowing path lured them like a siren's call, but she wasn't going to let her guard down. This way, she urged, veering in that direction, praying fervently that it would lead to safety. But the whispers, now a crescendo of lost souls, seemed to turn sharp with hungry anticipation. Join us, they beckoned, echoing in her mind much like a chorus of impending doom. Panic surged as she glanced back at the towering figure trailing them, growing ever closer, its shadow swallowing the light. Lily stumbled again, a mix of fear and exhaustion written all over her small face. Mommy, I can't, I'm too tired. Desperation filled her voice, and Jessica felt her resolve waver for just a moment. Just a little longer, sweetheart, Jessica reassured her, grasping Lily's hand tighter. The cold sweat on her palm felt like ice as they pressed on, the maze narrowing, the walls of corn closing in like a monstrous mouth ready to snap shut. Suddenly, the oppressive air shifted, now scented with something foul like rot and despair. Jessica stopped, instinctively raising her hand. "Did you smell that?" Lily nodded, wide-eyed. "It's gross, Mom." They shared a glance, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Something was wrong, and every instinct in Jessica screamed to run faster. But they had lost track of time, of direction. The maze twisted around them, a labyrinth of dread that seemed to mock their fear. As if to amplify their rising terror, the chilling whispers turned personal. "Feed, feed, feed." The unseen entities sounded more like a chant, a dreadful litany of hunger. The lines between the corn stalks began to pulse, silhouetting their bodies against an unseen force. "Mom, what do they want?" Lily's voice trembled, her innocent inquiry laced with the weight of unthinkable terror. "I don't know, but we want to let them have us," Jessica replied, her breath hitching in her throat. Suddenly, the ground buckled and a fissure opened up right in front of them, revealing a gaping pit filled with a thick blackness that seemed to breathe as if it were alive. Jessica's heart lurched. It felt as if the very earth beneath them was talking, whispering secrets of doom. The shadows poured from the pit, tendrils of darkness reaching towards them. "Go! Now!" Jessica shouted, ripping Lily's attention from the void. She turned on her heel and sprinted, yet the feeling of being pursued only intensified. They dashed past the pit, but a cold wind rushed out as they passed, as if something was trying to drag them back in. The flickering light ahead dimmed, revealing another fork in the path, each way shadowed in obscurity. The left path whispered sweeter, softer, seducing, while the right was dead silent, dark, and forbidding. Jessica glanced at Lily, sensing her daughter's wavering resolve. "We have to choose, Mom," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. Jessica could feel her pulse thunder in her ears. What if one path led them back right into the creature's waiting arms? "Okay, let us try the right side." It seems quieter. Even as she spoke, dread pooled in her stomach. "Mom, what if it's worse?" Jessica swallowed hard, guilt gnawing at her. She grabbed Lily, holding her close as they made their way toward the darkness, each step swallowed by the looming silence. But every instinct screamed that they were not alone. Then, without warning, a massive earthen hand thrust up from the ground, its fingers clawed and grimy. Jessica barely had time to react as it lunged forward, catching her and dragging her down, hurling her into the abyss. "Mom!" Lily screamed, her voice piercing the shadows. As Jessica fought against the grip of the soil, she looked up to see Lily frozen in place, tears streaming down her face. The whispers rose again, louder now, join us, forever." The ground surged, pulling Jessica deeper into its dark embrace. She was terrified of being lost, of being away from her daughter. "Help me!" Jessica yelled hoarsely, but her pleas seemed to dissolve into the darkness. Just as she felt the grip of the earth close around her, she caught a glimpse of something in the shadows, a slip of white fabric moving in the distance, barely discernible. Could it be? But before she could process, the ground snapped tight like a monstrous trap, leaving only one agonizing question hanging in the air: what awaited them at the end of the darkness? Jessica felt the suffocating grip of the darkness wrap around her, pounding in her chest like a drum of despair. The clammy earth pulled her further down, each second stretching into an eternity of terror. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the void, disappearing as if it had never escaped her lips. No. She couldn't let fear drown her. With all her strength, she clawed her way upwards, fighting back against the soil that sought to claim her. The echoes of Lily's panicked voice pierced her consciousness, a faint beacon in the overwhelming night. "Mom! Mom!" Terror ignited her limbs, and she pushed against the suffocating earth. Jessica felt her nails scrape against rough surfaces, a small spark of defiance igniting her will to survive. Suddenly, her fingers hooked onto something solid, a root, a sturdy tendril that led her away from the darkness. "Lily!" she shouted, desperation cutting through the oppressive whisper of the abyss. Time seemed to warp as she pulled herself free, gasping for air as she collapsed onto the cold, damp ground. Everything was dark and still, suffocated by an eerie silence. She blinked against the shadows, scanning her surroundings. Lily? There was no answer. Panic surged again, ripping through her chest like barbed wire. Had she really lost her? The words crawled back into her mind. Join us forever. The chant echoed, mingling with the fallen leaves and withering corn stalks surrounding her. Jessica staggered to her feet, swaying as she regained her bearings. She had to find her daughter. The darkness loomed, threatening to pull her back into that hellish pit. But she spotted a glimmer of light aflicker on the horizon. Holding on to that light as if it were a lifeline, she propelled herself toward it, the whispers trailing behind like a macabre cheer. With every step, the light grew brighter, yet the air grew heavier, choked by an unseen presence. The glow felt tainted, as if laced with the essence of the very darkness that had threatened to swallow her. But she forced herself forward, the thought of Lily consuming her every thought. Then she heard it, a cry. A familiar sound that made her heart leap. Mommy! Help me! Lily! Jessica sprinted, the terrain uneven and treacherous beneath her feet. She pushed through, every desperate breath filled with dread and determination. Just a little more the path opened up into a clearing, bathed in an unnatural glow that pulsed ominously. And there, at its center, was Lily. She stood frozen, her small frame caught in the grasp of a shadowy figure, twisted and grotesque, its features impossible to decipher. The air crackled with malevolence. Lily! Jessica's voice cracked as she dashed forward, fear spurring her on, but she felt an invisible weight pressing against her. It was as if the very shadows themselves held her back, whispering her defeat. You can't have her! She screamed, her voice a snarl of defiance. With every ounce of will, Jessica fought those unseen bonds, her body straining against an impossible force. The figure jerked, its head turning toward her, and in that fleeting moment, she saw its eyes, black voids that stared back with a hunger that sent chills down her spine. No! Jessica lunged, but the shadows embraced Lily tighter, filling the air with unholy laughter that felt like shards of glass to her ears. Join us, the chant roared, reverberating around her, consuming the night. The ground beneath her trembled, a sinister shudder, and Jessica fought through the sound of her own heartbeat, desperate to reach her daughter. Mommy, help! Lily cried, tears streaming down her face, but the malevolent force was unyielding. Suddenly, a blinding flash surged, erupting from the shadows, illuminating the clearing for just a heartbeat. Jessica caught her breath. The hints of a twisted altar emerged, marked with strange symbols, surrounded by bodies encircled in the very earth. She froze, recognition flooding her, the horror of those whispering souls sharpening the edge of despair. In that heartbeat of light, everything shifted. Lily! Jessica screamed. But time felt like it froze again, the darkness swallowing the flash whole, leaving only chaos and dread in its wake. A truth gripped her heart. What if the maze was not merely a trap, but a sacrifice? A realization pierced through her, a dark secret hidden within the very soil they stood upon. Could she uncover the truth before it was too late? Jessica's legs shook, but she pushed forward through the shadows, the whispers nearing a fever pitch, determined to save Lily and herself from the malevolence at play. But as she reached for her daughter, she noticed other figures moving in the corners of her vision, desperate souls, their eyes pleading for salvation. From the heart of darkness, one chilling question echoed in her mind: were they truly her only hope, or part of the horror she was about to embrace? Jessica's heart thundered in her chest as she pushed through the suffocating shadows toward Lily. The air felt electric, crackling, like a storm about to break. Each step was a battle, the whispers heightening, drowning out her thoughts as they hissed strange, ominous promises. Help me! Lily's voice trembled, a fading echo that clutched at Jessica's insides. She was so close yet so far. The shadowy figure tightened its grip, tendrils coiling around her daughter like serpentine chains of darkness. No! Jessica screamed, a raw plea that ripped through the shroud of fear. She felt her energy ebbing, each breath a struggle. Was she strong enough to fight it? For one moment clarity broke through the fog. she needed to remember what had kept her alive so far. The stories told around campfires. The rituals whispered in old lore. Sacrifices made to appease dark forces. Lily's eyes widened, reflecting an innocence that felt brutally out of place in this nightmarish theater. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Stay with me," Jessica shouted, her voice a mix of fear and fierce resolve. She looked back at the altar looming ominously in the shadows, its symbols shifting under the weight of her gaze, each one more grotesque than the last, telling stories of those who hadn't escaped. Rushing toward her daughter, each footfall seemed to clash against a growing dread. The shadows danced closer, taunting her, growing more twisted and terrifying. The cold fingers of fear wrapped tightly around her throat. "Lily!" She lunged forward one last time, the unseen barriers tightening like a noose. Suddenly, the whispers changed, morphing into something more sinister. "Sacrifice, every seed must be sown." The chant swirled around her, drawing her deeper into despair. Her thoughts raced. What did they mean by sacrifice? Was she to be another offering? Fueled by desperation, she reached for the shadows gripping Lily, grabbing at the tendrils that writhed like panicked snakes. Ripping them away felt like tearing flesh. A bone-deep sorrow and desperation coated her hands. At that moment, everything shifted again. The blinding light surged back, illuminating not only the altar but the faces around it, lost souls with vacant eyes, their bodies half buried into the earth, as if they had been devoured bit by bit. The realization clawed at her psyche. They were not just victims but part of this grotesque ritual. "Mom! Please!" Lily sobbed, her voice breaking Jessica further. The horror of what lay ahead began to crash down on her like a wave. Could she make it through this? With a sudden jolt of hope, Jessica remembered the stories. There was always a way to break the enchantment, a way to outsmart the darkness. But could she risk whatever cost it might take to save Lily? As she tore at the tendrils, she felt something cold and sharp graze her cheek. A whisper, creeping into her ear, let her go. "Join us, join all of us." In a violent rage, she rallied against the menace that threatened her daughter. "No!" The word exploded from her lips, raw and primal. She charged toward Lily, determined to cut through the darkness. But as she grasped Lily's arm, something unexpected happened. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, revealing something, a small glimmer nestled in the dirt beneath the altar. It pulsed with a rhythm, like a heart. "What is that?" Jessica gasped, her instincts screaming that this could change everything. "Mom! We have to go!" Lily urged, her little hands slipping as the shadows drew closer again. If it was the key to their escape, she had no choice. The moment shifted into one of agonizing tension. Should she risk it? As the shadows surged, Jessica weighed saving her daughter against the lure of the unknown. The darkness tightened its grip, and the altar throbbed ominously. With one last glance at Lily, she made her choice. The world fell silent, holding its breath, as Jessica reached for the pulsing light beneath the altar, knowing fully that her decision could lead them to salvation or damnation. What awaited her in that blinding pulse? Would it be the dark truth that set them free, or would it seal their fate forever? As Jessica's fingers brushed against the pulsing light, a surge of energy shot through her, electrifying every nerve. It was as if the very essence of fear and hope had collided within her grasp. The shadows wailed, a monstrous cacophony rising up around them. The earth trembled beneath her, and bile clawed up her throat. "Mom! Hurry!" Lily's pleading voice was drowned by the urgent thrumming that resonated through the altar. Pulling the object free with a violent tug, Jessica felt a rush of warmth bloom against her palm, a smooth, glowing orb, radiating an uncanny, golden light. Instantly, the shadows recoiled, hissing and writhing like serpents stung by a sharp iron. But as she clutched the orb, a dark realization washed over her, freezing her blood. It was just a source of light. It felt alive, pulsing like a heart, but also familiar? Memories flooded back, her grandmother's stories about a curse, an ancient protector intertwined with the soil of this land. Must return, a voice whispered through her thoughts, a honeyed tone steeped in longing and despair. "It's a trap!" Jessica gasped, pulling Lily closer. The orb-esque glow brightened, almost as if reacting to her fear. "We can't trust it." A deep, rumbling laugh echoed from the shadows, sending a chill racing down Jessica's spine. "You think you can escape?" "The roots run deep," the voice hissed, slithering around them like smoke. Determined, Jessica raised the orb high, hoping its light would break through the darkness surrounding them. "We will not be your offerings," she cried defiantly. The brightness spun around them, a protective barrier but also a beacon. The shadows writhed and howled louder, desperately clawing at the shimmering barrier. Lily squeezed her mother's hand, fear-stricken but resolute. "What do we do now, Mom?" Jessica searched her mind for any scraps of the lore she recalled. "The light, it can bind them. It's powerful." The orb in her hand pulsed again, beating like a frantic heart. But the moment was fleeting. In a terrible rush, the shadows lashed out, tendrils striving to snatch the orb away from her. "Join us, Jessica. You're one of us now. Feel the power, let it flow." The sensation of 1,000 fingers clawing at her was overwhelming. It seeped into her mind, threatening to blur reality. "Focus!" she shouted, shaking off the encroaching darkness. "We need to escape." With a frantic burst of energy, she yanked Lily behind her, the orb illuminating their path as she turned. The shadows shrieked in fury, drowning in the light but also morphing to block their way. Panic clawed at her chest. There was a knife edge of time, and every second counted. "Over there! The exit!" Lily pointed to a flicker of light beyond a crumbling wall of shadows, but Jessica's heart sank. It was shrouded in thick, twisting darkness. "Stay close," she warned, taking Lily's hand tightly. As they sprinted toward the light, the orb flared, illuminating grotesque faces that swirled in the shadows, eyes glinting with malice. They howled in agony as the light sliced through their forms, yet the moment they reached the threshold, a deafening roar erupted. The ground beneath her trembled, fissures opening like hungry maws. The shadows were alive, angry and vengeful. Jessica froze at the edge, caught between the light and the wrath of the dark forces. "What do we do?" she breathed, panic clawing at her throat. "Mom! We have to push through." Lily pulled at her, but Jessica hesitated, the orb pulsing in her hand. Then the light began to flicker. The darkness encroached, snaking forward as if they were being consumed. Jessica's heart raced, desperation clawing at her. One choice remained visible through the chaos. Could she trust the orb? Did it hold the key to their escape, or would it seal their fates forever? With a deep breath, she grasped the orb tighter, adrenaline surging. There was only one way to find out. "We're going through!" With a shout, Jessica flung herself and Lily toward the pulsing light, bracing for whatever awaited them on the other side. But the moment they stepped through, everything changed. What had once been the altar transformed into a darkened forest, haunting and silent. And there, amid the twisted trees, stood the shadowy figure, grinning wider than ever. "Welcome home," it breathed, and the world around them plunged into darkness. The forest felt alive, thick with dampness and dread. As Jessica and Lily stumbled forward, the ground turned soft, almost sponge-like, as if swallowing their footsteps. The malignant figure loomed, its shape flickering in the wavering shadows, twisting like smoke. A smile stretched across its featureless face, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Where are we?" Lily whimpered, clinging to her mother's waist. But Jessica could barely answer. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet the enormity of the figure kept her frozen. "Home," it whispered again, and the trees seemed to whisper back in malicious agreement, their branches clawing at the waning light. Jessica looked around, a haze of panic clouding her mind. She turned back to the orb, its golden glow pulsing erratically, but it couldn't fight this consuming darkness. "We have to get out. We have to." Suddenly, the tension broke like a snapped twig. The shadow lunged forward, moving impossibly fast. Jessica's instincts kicked in. She grabbed Lily and darted to the side, feeling the rush of air as the figure barely missed them. "Run!" she shouted, propelling them deeper into the forest. Twisted roots tangled at their feet. The trees seemed to close in, shadows stretching and looming as they dashed past. The orb's light flickered more violently now, revealing glimpses of sinister figures lurking among the trees. They weren't just shadows. They had form, limbs, and faces twisted in eternal anguish. Bile rose in Jessica's throat as she caught sight of one that looked too much like her grandmother, twisted and weeping in despair. "Keep going!" she hollered, but Lily stumbled behind her. Jessica pulled her up, looking back for a fleeting second. The dark figure was laughing now, a low, throaty sound echoing through the woods, promising relentless pursuit. "We can't stop. Don't look back," Jessica urged, feeling the heat of the orb against her palm. Every pulse felt like a heartbeat, frantic and chaotic. Yet, despite its glow, the shadows thickened, blocking their escape, tightening around their every step. Moments later, they reached a clearing, bathed in the moon's silvery light. A path lay ahead, overgrown but faintly visible through the dense fog, leading further into the heart of the forest. Desperation pushed Jessica onward, her breath tearing through her chest like the branches overhead. Out of nowhere, a wall of whispers surrounded them, words overlapping in a frantic chorus. "Join us," they crooned, pulling at Jessica's psyche, tempting her to surrender. The orb flickered, its light growing faint, and doubt clawed at her resolve. What if it was a mistake? What if the orb was never meant to save them? Suddenly, the shadows congealed before them, taking on a stronger, more defined form. They surged forward like a tidal wave, a mass of roiling darkness determined to consume everything in its path. "Mom!" Lily screamed, her voice breaking Jessica's reverie. The girl was frozen, eyes wide, caught in the approaching tide of terror. "No!" Jessica cried, shaking off the darkness that threatened to seep into her mind. "We won't let it take us." She raised the orb, its light dimming beneath the weight of the shadows. "Trust it!" she shouted, thrusting it forward. The light flared momentarily, illuminating the grotesque figures surrounding them. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, but their anguished cries only fueled Jessica's determination. As the orb pulsed once more, she screamed, "Go! We need to fight!" They charged together, forging through the darkness, but the shadows were relentless, clawing at them, shrinking away from the orb's fragile glow. The clearing began to shift as the shadows writhed beneath their feet, revealing a pathway that twisted deeper into the woods. With resolve igniting her, Jessica took Lily's hand, ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. Just as they crossed into the unknown, the trees shifted, trunks bending like bows, roots tangling around their ankles, pulling them back deeper into the grasp of darkness. "Don't let go!" Jessica yelled, gripping Lily's hand tighter as they plunged into the gathering gloom. Then, behind them, a voice softly echoed, "You'll return, you will be mine again, you cannot escape." Terror rippled through Jessica. How could they escape when the shadows promised a fate worse than death? Time was running out, and the figures seemed to be getting closer. What was waiting for them in this new depth of despair? Jessica's heart raced at the thought. Would they make it through, or would they succumb to the echoes of the past? The path beneath their feet shifted, twisting as if it were a living serpent, intent on dragging them back. Jessica could feel the clammy grip of fear squeezing her insides like a vice. She tore her gaze from the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole and focused on the path ahead. The orb pulsed rhythmically in her hand, its golden hue providing the smallest warmth against the encroaching cold. "Keep moving, Lily! Don't look back!" she yelled, her voice strained as panic licked at her throat. Lily stumbled, her small feet struggling against the grasping roots. Each step felt like wading through molasses. The energy it required was almost too much. "I'm trying, Mom!" she squeaked, her breaths shallow as their hearts sank to the frantic beat of dread. The voice behind them grew louder, more insistent. "You cannot escape, you are already mine," it hissed, weaving through the trees like an invisible thread. Jessica's grip on the orb tightened, sweat beading on her forehead as she fought against the bone-chilling fear it instilled. They forged ahead, the path narrowing as the oppressive forest cloaked them further. The air grew dense, each breath thick with the smell of wet earth and something else, something foul. Jessica felt it crawl beneath her skin, a sense of being watched, as if eyes adorned the 100 twisted tree trunks around them. "Mom, I see shadows!" Lily cried, pointing shakily. They're moving! Jessica turned, heart hammering in her chest. Faces formed from the dark streaks, eyes glinting like shards of glass, mouths twisted into expressions of agony. Gnarled fingers reached out from the void, desperate to claw at her. Run! She screamed, yanking Lily along as tears of terror streamed down her daughter's face. As they sprinted, the orb flickered wildly, its light stuttering under the immense pressure of the shadow's grip. Stay close. Stay in the light, Jessica urged. But the shadows were relentless. They flowed like ink, curving towards them, some reaching for Lily, eliciting a strangled gasp. No! Get away from her! Jessica roared, instinct pushing her forward, the orb burning hotter in her palm. Suddenly, they burst into another clearing, but this one felt different, stagnant, heavy with anticipation. The ground was dry here, cracked like an abandoned wasteland under a blistering sun. Ghostly shapes writhed just beyond the edges, shimmering like heat waves. Mom, I don't like this. Lily trembled, pulling closer, eyes darting around. But before Jessica could comfort her, the shadows streamed in, surrounding them, an atmosphere thickening like a storm cloud. The voice rose to a chilling crescendo, enveloping them. You think you can hide? I know your fears. Jessica's resolve wavered. What do you want from us? She shouted, channeling her defiance into the cold, eerie air. Everything in her wanted to cower, yet she refused to let it consume her. Return to what you abandoned, the voice sneered, the cold laughter freezing the very breath in her lungs. Then she caught sight of something glimmering in the dirt, a shimmer of silver. Instinctively, she lunged forward and grasped it. A key? No, a locket? Lily tugged on her sleeve, eyes wide. What is that, Mom? Open it! As she flipped it over, the small clasp clicked. Inside, a faded photograph emerged, a woman with familiar features smiling. A chill washed over her. It was her grandmother, the one who had warned her long ago about the forest, the price of their family's blood. The shadows recoiled, a momentary retreat, as if the locket held a power they feared. But only for an instant. The suffocating voice erupted again. You cannot escape your past. You cannot break the circle. Jessica's heart hammered. What circle? The shadows surged forward, threatening to envelop them entirely. With resolve sparking to life in her chest, she shouted, enough. As she clutched the locket, channeling a surge of anger and determination from deep within, the shadows halted. A moment passed, and then the whispers morphed into screams of rage. No! They shrieked, advancing once more, but something shifted in the air. The orb blazed brighter, and Jessica felt a surge of hope. What lay ahead? Was this the key to their escape, or another trap sown from her darkest memories? As the thrumming darkness closed in, Jessica and Lily stood firm, knowing one thing: they couldn't look back. But what other horrors awaited them deeper in the forest? And would the locket turn into their salvation or their doom? Jessica held the locket tightly, her heart pounding like a battle drum. The shadows surged around her and Lily, a tightening grip that threatened to crush their spirits. We are going to fight, she declared, her voice cutting through the chaos as the orb pulsed warmly in her hand. This is our family's legacy, and I won't let it end here. The echoes of despair rose, wrapping around them like a vice, as more faces emerged from the dark shapes. But Jessica's resolve hardened. The photograph of her grandmother glowed softly, an ancestral beacon against the encroaching darkness. You have no control over us, she yelled, summoning all the energy she had. A cacophony of screams erupted from the shadows as they recoiled, the figures contorting in agony. The bloodline cannot be broken, the ominous voice hissed. It was powerful, yet Jessica felt the tide of fear shifting in their favor. Lily, it's time. She turned to her daughter, whose small frame trembled but shone with a fierce light of her own. Hold the orb with me. Lily nodded, swallowing her fear. She grasped the orb tightly, her innocent determination radiating through the oppressive air. Jessica could feel the warmth spreading, merging into a brilliant light that illuminated their surroundings. The shadowy figures writhed like wounded animals, howls of rage spilling from them. No! They screamed, retreating as Jessica and Lily began to chant slowly the words of an incantation she had faintly recalled from her grandmother's tales, a rhythm of power that connected them both to every lost ancestor. Together, Lily! Jessica encouraged, and slowly they raised the orb high above their heads. The light erupted, blinding and pure, seeping through the darkness like sunbeams cutting through thick fog. The shadows shrieked, the malevolent force that had held them hostage for so long began to unravel, hissing and recoiling farther back. With each repetition of their chant, a circle of light blossomed around them, a living barrier that grew larger, swallowing the darkness whole. Jessica's heart raced, pumped by the adrenaline of hope. "We can break the curse!" she shouted, the energy surging between them. Lily's face, illuminated by the radiant glow, shimmered with courage, emboldened as they pressed forward. As the shadows began to dissipate, their screeches transformed into whispers, mingling with the sound of wind and leaves. "You will return. You must feed. You are ours." But they weren't just sounds. They were memories, haunting echoes of those who had become trapped. "Not anymore!" Jessica cried with fierce conviction, their connection to the orb tightening with each beat of her heart. "We are free! We will not be your sacrifices!" The light engulfed the shadows, disintegrating the echoes of past souls that had called upon her lineage. They flew into the air like fragments of a broken spell, and a satisfying warmth spread through Jessica's body as the last remains of terror vanished. And suddenly, silence. An overwhelming, unimaginable silence filled the clearing, suffocating the remnants of fear that clung to the edges of her mind. In that stillness, Jessica turned to Lily. The orb in their hands pulsed brighter, and the dark forest began to shift. The oppressive trees faded, revealing a familiar sight: the entrance of the corn maze. The moon shimmered above them, casting silver light on their path home. "We did it! We really did it!" Lily cried, her voice cracking with disbelief. Joy and relief washed over Jessica, breaking the remnants of dread that had held her hostage for so long. "We did! We are free!" Jessica knelt, embracing Lily tightly, feeling the weight lift from her chest. But in that hug, a flicker of something deep within her stirred. The shadows may have been vanquished, but their whispers would echo forever in her heart. As they stepped through the maze's entrance, the festival lights twinkled in the distance, vibrant and inviting. Kids laughed, friends gathered, and the delicious smells of autumn treats wafted through the air. But this time, Jessica felt different. She felt fierce and resilient, ready to protect her family, and as she led Lily back into the warm embrace of the festival, she vowed to honor her legacy: no more victims, no more whispers. They rebuild the bond they had nearly lost in darkness. With each passing moment, a future bright with hope ahead, free from the suffocating past. But behind them in the maze, a single shadow lingered, whispering promises as old as the earth beneath. It would remember them, waiting patiently for the day it could strike again. But until then they had conquered, and this victory tasted sweet. Remember, life can always lead back into darkness, but together, the light will always find a way. If you haven't already, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your love for the journey we just shared. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild adventure. And for the love of storytelling, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't miss out.